Hello again, viewer. Once more into the valley of counting collections. To try and make things a little bit easier, I've actually gone ahead and split the Persian collection, or perhaps more correctly the Achaemenid Persian collection, into early and late. What we're looking at here is painted and based 220 infantry, 24 cavalry, 11 command comprising 9 foot and 2 cavalry, and a chariot, the old chariot with 4 horses and 4 figures in such. Now, with the Persians, there's a little bit of interplay. You can often have some of the units in the early Persian army in with the some of the early Persians in with the later Persians. Put your tongue back in, Ian, and think for a change. But okay, I thought what I might try is, rather than sort of zooming over the top of everything and making everyone seasick, I might try and move around just a little bit and perhaps just give a few hints as to the way I've based things and why. Okay, so what we're looking at here is what I consider to be the, inverted commas, elite command. Immortals, also immortals, but they need just a couple more figures to each base, and I'll explain why in a minute. Some Lydian hoplites, and these are good old minifig Egyptian Marines, which the history books tell me were present at Marathon. Now, whether they were dressed like this or whether they were more particularly in Persian garb, who knows? I'll let you be the judge. But just a couple of things. With the Lydian hoplites, now these are based a lot like my early Greeks. Let's move this out of the way. Move them in a bit closer. Yep. Now, get my big buffet hand out the way and let some light on it. Now, as you can see there, basically, when I first started the collection, I'm not sure about the basing, so I went with what I believe is commonly called DBX standard, 6 centimetres frontage. I went for 3 centimetres depth for heavy infantry rather than 2, simply because these figures in sort of an attacking pose. I got metal spears, and the shortest one was 4 centimetres. Never even occurred to Buffhead here that I could cut them down to size. So I just thought, well, if I'm going to fit them on a base, it's got to be at least 3 centimetres deep. And I think that looks a little bit better, and you can stagger the figures a little bit there. So when it came to the Persians, now I notice a lot of people with their Persians, they will simply have the front rank with the sparabara and the rear rank as archers. Now, my history books tell me that the front rank was sparabara in reality, but then the next anything 7 to 11 odd ranks were archers. So I wanted something that gave a bit more of a hint of the depth of the archers. So now the sparabara, as I understand it, were classified as medium infantry. I mean, who knows? So I had them 3 on the frontage as opposed to heavy infantry with 4. And then to give the illusion of a deeper lot of archers, you'll see there's a 3 sparabara, but the 5 archers at the back are sort of more in a bit of a hodgepodge. And I think that just gives the nice idea of the depth of the archers behind, and yet it still allows me to get away with only 8 figures on a 6 centimetre square base. Now, I could have done the 3 sparrow barra at the front and then 2 ranks of archers behind, but then the base would have to be deeper, storage problems. Obviously, the cost would go up. I think you need at least 4 across if I was going to do that. So, more cost there, more figures to paint, etc., etc. So this was my solution for the Sparrow Barra. Over here, now when I came to the Immortals, I thought, how am I going to make them different? Well, apart from a lot of purple and yellow, which were sort of the elite colours, hard to get colours, royal colours, whatever you want to look at it, I decided to make them 10 to a base just to give them a bit more mass, a bit more oomph. So as you can see, there's actually 4 spearmen at the front, but 6 archers at the back. Focus, you can do it. Okay, so that's just a bit of a reason as to why. Now with why they're based as they are, with the Greeks, I started out with sort of a standard lot of 4 bases. Again, these are Lydians, they're not Greeks, but the same principle. But then when I got to the Sparrow Barra, I thought, well, why not just put them all on a 6 centimetre square base? So that's the whys and wherefores of how the collection's based. Over the back, now you'll notice when we get to the later Achaemenids that there's a lot more cavalry. 2 units of heavy, and here, because they come in 6 in a pack with foundry and not 6 in a pack, 3 in a pack. I've wound up with 2 lots of 3 now for Hail Caesar. Even that's too big even for Hail Caesar. So what I tend to do is when I'm playing, unless they're specifically wanting to be horse archers, but a couple of things I can do. I can do something as simple as that, so that this becomes pure horse archer. This obviously combined archers and spears, and this one just spear armed light cavalry. At this stage, I believe most of the cavalry pretty much all carried a bow, even the inverted commas heavies. You might also notice a bit of a progression here. My earlier basing was, as I say, fairly rudimentary. A bit of grit, a little bit of static grass, and that was about it. But you'll start to notice as we go through my collections, I start getting a bit more adventurous. Tufts start appearing along with a few rocks and other bits and pieces. All right, let's have a look at the average Joe Grunt Sparrow Barra and just a few thoughts on painting Persians. One of the things I was warned about when trying to paint an Achaemenid army was not to get too tied up in the detailed uniforms that they wore, which can be quite difficult to paint in and of their own. But even if you succeed, I was told that sometimes, even though individually they might look great, if you put them all together, they look like a bit of a dog's breakfast on the table. Now, I don't have anything to show you, but I can actually confirm good friend of mine got some Immortals professionally painted, absolutely brilliant painting job on them. Individually, they were just amazing. But when you put them all together on the table, they just looked like an over-colorized mess. Strange. If that hasn't been your experience, well, good luck to you. But I'm afraid for me, that definitely was the case. So often it's a case I find of by all means, try and put a little bit of colour in and a little pattern and design, but don't go overboard. Now, if we use this particular base as an example, now you can see there's nothing too fancy there. I've simply used different colours, lines on the hems of the shirts, for lack of a better word, some chevrons there on that one and on his pants, just some simple spots on this one here. Common trick I did was I'd have just two parallel lines there of the same colour. Now individually you might look at them and say, yeah, well, you know, but when you put them all together on the table, I think they actually come up quite well. Now, I'm no great shakes as a painter, but the thought of trying to paint any of these in any sort of huge detail was quite off-putting. Similarly, you know, with the cavalry, same deal. Sorry, terrible camera work. What else do you expect from me? Now, hopefully you can see there, again, just, you know, colours together, you know, simple things like a line down an arm. If you can see that one there, he's just got some dots down his arm. You know, some vibrant colours. Even on their manes, you can see there, hopefully, just some dots. And I think the effect is quite good, comes up quite well. So yeah, just a little hint there for, you know, if you ever decide to do a Persian army, have a look at, I think it's MGH176. He hasn't posted for a while, but he did a really large sort of, you know, old-fashioned in the sense of numbers of figures, you know, blocks of 32 figures or more per unit, Persians. Excellent job. I'm sorry, MGH176, I can't remember your name. If you have a look over in my the people I've subscribed to, you'll find him there. He hasn't posted for a while, but he did elephants and all sorts of things. Go and have a look at his channel. Excellent stuff. All right, back in a sec to summarise. Okay, so there we have it. Early Persian army. As I said, 220 infantry figures, 24 cavalry, 11 command, comprising 9 foot and 2 cav, and the chariot with 4 and 4. Now, of course, you can add Greeks to this army. One of the great things I love about the period in 500 to about 100 in the Mediterranean is so much is interchangeable. By that I mean, you know, you can have an Alexandrian Macedonian army, but you can include some of these sorts of troops types in. It's very much a case of, you know, being able to move units around between different armies or add them to different armies. It's a very flexible, good period, I find, apart from being incredibly interesting with the, you know, the Greek-Persian wars, the Punic wars, the Macedonia versus Darius or Darius, depending on how you pronounce it. All right, we'll call it quits there. Next, we'll have, in a few days' time, I'm going away, but in a few days' time, we'll have a look at the later Achaemenid army, and we'll talk about the differences, what, you know, people believe were the differences in weapons and tactics. All right, ever onward. Thanks for watching. Bye.